Hey everybody, and welcome back. I'm Josh. I'm hanging out with my girl Lemon here today, and I want to do a video on bearded dragon behavior with you guys. Discuss a few of the different visual cues that dragons use for communication. So right now you can see that my girl Lemon here is doing a wave. She can see Rocco back there, so she's feeling a little bit threatened right now, and she's using the slow head bob and a wave just to signal to him that she's not a threat. Bearded dragons use a lot of visual cues when they're doing their communicating, and the better that you can understand the cues that they're doing, the better you are going to be able to read the animal and see what he needs. So I wrote out a list here of a few of the most common bearded dragon behaviors that I see, and I'm going to share a few things with you guys from having bearded dragons for almost 5 years now, and at one point there was 36 of them that I had. So I've learned quite a few things from watching them and being observant about their behaviors, what they're trying to tell you. So first thing is the Lemon here. She's going crazy, but I'll just get her calmed down by letting her treadmill out for a minute, and then she'll be calm as ever on my hand. So there we go. She's trying to prove me wrong. She's a good girl though. So here, I'm going to put her back up on my shoulder. The first thing is there's a difference between submissive and dominant type visual cues. So I'm going to discuss the differences as I roll through the list. There's also differences between the males and the females and what type of cues that they're going to use and the frequency at which you're going to see different things. Also want to discuss the difference between a colonial situation when you have multiple bearded dragons together versus when you only have one individual bearded dragon. So, and the what you see is going to differ greatly in those different scenarios. So Puff right now, he's going crazy in the back. And Puff. Hey, you. Oh, he's out. So since Puff wanted to come out for the video, and he's got the black beard going right now. So we'll talk about the beard puff. It's a good opportunity for that. Now, beard puffing and color change in the beard is usually going to be a indication of dominance. So you're going to see it more in the males when they fluff the beard up. They're trying to look bigger. So either A, they're feeling threatened, or they're trying to be dominant when that beard comes out. And you're going to get an indication of what's going on from the scenario. Like if there's a bird circling up above you and he's fluffed out and pancaked down, making himself look bigger, then you can take it that he's feeling threatened. But now with Puff, he turned really dark black on his beard, and it's not really fluffed out. It's just black right now. But he's doing this because he saw Lemon out, and now he's interested in mating. So this what Puff's doing right now is more of a mating behavior. He's trying to get over there to show that he's dominant. So at this point, he may, if he sees her, he's going to puff his beard out, and then he may even stomp the ground and do the head bob. So, which takes me to the top of the list here. I'm going to put him back. But the first thing on the list I wanted to talk about was the head bob. So the head bob, you're going to see it more frequently in the adults. A juvenile may do some head bobbing, but more typically it's going to be an adult behavior. It can be submissive or dominant. depending on the situation. It can be seen. It's going to be seen in both the males and the females, and more frequently, it's going to be seen if you have a colonial situation where there's males and females together, or in the same room or building, or it's going to be seen more frequently in that situation versus if you just have one individual animal. So now head bobbing, there's going to be a speed to it. How fast is it or slow? There's going to be an intensity to it. It's either going to be like really intense or it's going to be like really gentle, you know? And so if it's fast and intense, that's going to be indicate that usually you're going to see that in the males more frequently than a female. It's going to be a breeding behavior or a territorial dispute behavior. So if you see that it's an aggressive behavior, the faster that it happens, the more aggressive it is. The darker the color on the beard when it's happening, and the bigger that thing fluffs, then the more aggressive it is. So usually, if they're fluffing the beard, they're like I said, they're trying to get themselves looking bigger. So more intimidating to males may do that to look more intimidating for a female. They may do it to look more intimidating for a male. Now, when the female sees an aggressive head bob, she's going to actually do a head bob herself, but it's going to be really slow and submissive. So the speed is going to be really slow, and the intensity is going to be very, very low. And it may be accompanied with a short hand wave. And the hand wave is a submissive trait. It's never used in a dominant trait. The hand wave is used to signify to another dragon or threat that the animal is being submissive. It doesn't want to fight, and it may be signaling to another dragon like, "Hey, I'm one of your own, so leave me alone." But it's never, the hand wave is always a submissive trait. It's never a dominant trait. When males go to breed with females, you're going to see the female, as she submits, is going to hand wave. And that's when the male knows that he's like in, you know. So let's see, head bobbing, beard puffing, color change. So color change, believe it or not, your bearded dragon, they're going to change colors depending on what's going on. Usually it's like a mood indication, but it can be temperature, or if the dragon feels uncomfortable or threatened, it also will change color. If it's stimulated too, it's going to change. So the colors, usually the darker it is, either he's not happy or it's too cold, or the temperatures aren't right. Something is usually wrong the darker they are. Now, they're not always going to be fired up and super colorful, but they shouldn't be fired down in black too frequently. If they are, then something's usually amiss with either your setup or your husbandry or the food, or there could be physically something going on with the dragon. Now, colored up would indicate things like bright coloring. And where do you see the colors? On the beard. So the beard tends to be more white when the dragon's like in his neutral state. If he starts getting excited, you may see some flecks of color in there, orange, yellows, reds. There's all sorts of different beard colors. And now, if you see those colors, it's usually an indication of a pretty happy dragon. So I see them when the dragons are like out and exploring and they're curious, or like say if you take like a feather and you're like tickling them, they'll turn those bright orange colors and colors. So that indicates to me a happy dragon when they have that. If when the dragon is threatened or something isn't right, it's going to be black and varying shades of it. It may be a light black if things aren't too bad. If things are very bad, it's going to be like a jet black. So now, and those colors are going to be seen. I got some lizards jumping around and stuff back there. The colors are going to be seen throughout the body as well. So they're colors on the belly. Usually, if you see a stressed out bearded dragon, he's going to have different patches of shapes of black ring looking the markings on the belly. That's they call them the stress marks, and that could be seen in a dragon where the humidity or something isn't right, the temperatures are too hot or too cold. So it indicates a stressed out dragon. So, and there's numerous things depending on your scenario. If it's an individual dragon, then usually it's like a habitat situation that needs to be corrected. If it's a colony, then there could be all sorts of complex issues going on. So the dragons, they do try to establish somewhat of a pecking order, and so there's different interactions among the bearded dragons, and sometimes somebody will get upset for what. So and they'll have those markings on them. Now the tail can turn black, especially the end of it, when usually that happens when either males are like gonna fight or breed. So there usually is a high intensity situation when the tail is starting to turn black like that. So let's see, color change, and this list isn't exhaustive. I'm just covering some things here off the top of my head. So now licking is going to be really important for bearded dragons to determine chemical signatures of where they are. So they have a Jacobson organ in their mouth, similar to a snake's, where the snake's got to slither the tongue, and then they retract it with the chemical signatures on there, and then determine what their environment. So bearded dragons are going to do a similar thing. They when they're in a new area, they're going to lick things to determine information about their environment. And when they see new people, or they lick, so that's important for them to determine what's going on in their environment, and to build up a memory of what's going on around them. So you will observe licking in male, female, juvenile, adult, colonial situations, individuals. You'll see that throughout. Let's see. So digging is a bearded dragon behavior that you're going to see in your females a lot. You may see it in males when they're trying to look for cool locations to brumate in, but usually digging is a sign of either a gravid female that has eggs in her, and she's looking for a suitable spot to lay her eggs. So digging is going to be seen in mostly adults, but it can be seen in juveniles. And it's not a submissive or a dominant behavior. It's just it is what it is. The females have to dig and to lay their eggs, and the males and females will both dig in to seek cool soil to sleep in at night. So, and you're going to see it in colonial situations and individual situations, probably about the same. However, in your colonial situations, if the females see the males a lot, then they might develop eggs in there more frequently, and so you could potentially see it more frequently in colonial situation. Um, so if you keep your enclosure too hot, too much, also your dragon might try digging in underneath the substrate or paper towels or whatever you're using. So Lemon wanted to come out, but she's full of energy right now. She doesn't want to just hang. So let's see. Oh, here, let's do standing vertical. Sometimes I see my dragons in the enclosures and they're like standing up vertical like that on branch or on a rock or something. A lot of times when they're doing that, it's probably like a belly thing. They're probably doing it to make the digesting easier inside their bellies there. So it could be a sign when you do see that. You probably want to just make sure they're not doing it all the time for too long, because it could be an indication that maybe like they're having stomach problems like frequently, or so you want to just observe, make sure they're going to the bathroom and that they're eating. And if you have to decrease the food size, to make sure that they're able to like break it down good, because if the food items are too big, then they could potentially, do that where they're standing up to try to get the food down and stuff. So let's see, standing vertical. Sometimes I guess they will do it too if they're feeling threatened. If if another lizard is around and they're trying to get up to a spot that's high up. I'm gonna put her down. So to get a better look and just to have a more heightened awareness, sometimes you will see them stand up and kind of be straight up. Now on the opposite end, sometimes they'll get low to the ground and do what we call the pancake. So pancaking is usually a sign of being threatened. So they're trying to make themselves look bigger, especially from like say like up above. So birds circling around or something like that, you're gonna see them doing the pancaking. If they feel threatened from another bearded dragon, like a bigger bearded dragon, or if it's a female and she sees a male, then either one of them will pancake out to make themselves look bigger and put the show on. So pancaking is usually most usually is a sign of feeling threatened. But in the case of a male trying to make himself look bigger on the female for mating purposes, he's gonna end up doing the same thing. And when he pancakes, both of them, they may actually pancake and then turn themselves up so that they're like facing each other. Some people call it flat rounding, flat and round. Tail whipping, that's another one that you don't usually see it because bearded dragons are more bearded dragons tend to be pretty docile and not aggressive. So, but they could, if they feel threatened at all, they're going to use the tail as a tool to defend themselves, and they'll give you like a warning usually, because tail whipping is kind of one of the last resorts for bearded dragons, but it can happen. And it's definitely an aggressive behavior, or defensive, I should say, a defensive behavior. Sometimes the females and males will get tail whipping at each other too during mating or before they breed. Gaping, this is a good one. So mouth gaping, when you notice that your lizard's got his mouth open. Here comes Chirp. That she or he might be too hot, and it's a thermal regulation method so that they can cool their bodies down. So you'll see your dragon open his mouth up and just sit there and kind of pant like a dog almost. It's the equivalent of panting, since these guys can't sweat. Now, when you do see them gaping like that, usually if they're right on a basking platform, that's going to be pretty normal situation. You want to make sure that they're not like gaping a lot in a cold, dark area or something, because potentially it can be a sign of a respiratory infection, but usually most of the time it's not that, because that's how they thermoregulate and stuff. But if the dragon is having an issue with his breathing, then he could be gaping too. So you want to just make sure that he's not gaping for a long period of time, say like over the period of like days and stuff like that. That would be abnormal. But it is how they regulate their body temperatures to cool themselves off when they're too hot. Now, you may also see the gaping as a threat to bite. If mostly this is going to be in situations with the adults. When it comes to breeding, you may see two dragons, the female especially, gape to threaten the male that she will bite if he tries to come over there. So that's another scenario where you could see lizard doing the gaping. See if I can get her to calm down enough to put her on my shoulder. No. Here you go, girl. I got you. Got her. So, let's see, gaping. Now, rubbing on rough surfaces. You're going to see this potentially if the dragon has sheds on them. You might notice that they're rubbing their bodies on a rock or a log, or maybe they're scratching themselves like in a certain area. Then it's usually an indication that there's a shed that's either getting ready to come off, or that they're going to go into shed soon. So that's an observation that I see all the time, especially with the babies when they're going through sheds like once a month. They're just you see them rubbing on things and rolling around trying to get the shed off. So rubbing, scratching at the scratching. Usually that's another indication, like I was saying about sheds coming off. So let's see here. One thing too, another trait that or behavior that you'll notice, and Chirp won't probably do it for me right now because she's all worked up. See, she's even orange on her beard. See that color? Wow. She's orange all over her beard right now, so she's like full of pith and vinegar. But when you pet the dragons on their head, so another cool behavior that bearded dragons do is when you pat them on their head and they'll close their eyes. It's usually an indication that your dragon feels really comfortable with you being around, and they're confident enough that they can close their eyes and not feel threatened. So it's a good thing when they do that. sometimes they'll close their eyes like that. When you go to offer them food, they may close one eye and or both of them, depending which one's being presented with the food. They may close their eyes as an indication that they're not interested anymore in the insect or the food, that they're full already. I see that quite a bit, and that's usually a real good indicator that they've had enough to eat. Usually when a dragon does that to me, then I don't even bother trying to persist with feeding him, because when they'll close their eye like that, and then you know that they're not hungry anymore. So let's see. Glass surfing. That's you'll see that a lot in the juveniles, as well as sometimes in the adults too. Whenever they get antsy and want to come out and play and do their thing, they're gonna go crazy in there, scratching on the glass, moving all over the place. So when I see them doing that, most frequently I just let them out and let them run around, because at that point they're like all full of energy and there's like no sense in trying to contain it. You'll see it more frequently in a colonial situation than in when you have just one individual. But depending, because some individuals, the lizards, they just don't want to stay in their enclosure and they want to come out and go to a window or do their thing. So it's probably just as frequent in males as females. But with the females, when they're getting really close to laying the eggs, then they're gonna go crazy in there, and they're gonna be looking for a place to dig and to nest out. So with your females, like your pregnant females, when they're getting ready to lay the eggs, that's when they're gonna go crazy in there, and they do the glass surfing in there. So now with any of your dragon, you when they're doing it, take notice when they're glass surfing. You want to know, are they not comfortable in there? Like, is it too hot, or maybe it's cold in there? But usually, if it was too hot, you'll easily see the dragon wants to get out of there, and they get it. So make sure your temperatures are good. Make sure that the dragon's like not like really hungry or something. You know, you want to see that there's not like a problem there. And maybe and most likely the dragon just wants to like come out and do its thing. So in a colonial situation though, maybe one dragon will see another dragon that's out and free and playing. The other dragon who's like in his enclosure still, he'll see that, and the next thing he's like he wants to be out too, and and glass surfing will ensue. And so you want to usually make sure that the lizards can't see each other, even when you're like free roaming them and stuff. So they will scratch up plexiglass enclosures and things like that. So let's see here. Brumation. Brumation's another bearded dragon behavior that's a whole video in itself. So, and I actually got a video on that. So check it in the link will be in the description of this video. Hey guys, I'm back. I had to get a haircut there, and there's been a few days in between that last segment there I did on the first video. But I got my flannel shirt on so you can tell that it's still me. And just got a couple more behaviors here I want to talk about on this video. But it's starting to get pretty long, so I'm thinking about maybe doing a series on behaviors, and maybe talk about some more less common behavior that I see in another video. So, but I want to talk about eye bulging. because that's a pretty wild bearded dragon behavior I see. And this is when the dragons puff their eyes out, and they usually have the lids closed when it happens. So, and most likely, it's not fully understood, but it's believed to be related to shedding and releasing the pressure on the eyes there. They stretch the shed out so that when they retract back, the shed will come off easier for them. So, and you see this often in the juveniles and babies because they're going through frequent sheds. So, the other trait behavior that I see is tail flicking, and this usually you'll see it in adults more frequently, and it's kind of a defensive or warning behavior. You'll notice that if you get two dragons together and there's either a male and a female or two males, that if a dragon feels threatened, you may see his tail twitch really quickly and or flick, and it's usually a sign that they're getting pretty nervous or getting ready to be defensive. And also kind of relating to the tail and behaviors that you see in the tail. Oftentimes the dragon will have his tail kind of sticking straight up, and usually this is a sign of the dragon being alert. So I see it in juveniles and adults, especially if you bring them into a new situation, say when you bring them outside, or sometimes I also see it when you first put them in the bath. They'll have their tail sticking straight up. It's an indication of them being alert. So eye bulging, tail flicking. That's probably going to be about it, you guys, for this video. It's starting to get pretty long here, but like I had mentioned there earlier, probably thinking of doing a series where I cover some of the less common bearded dragon behaviors that I see from time to time. So thank you guys for watching this video. Appreciate all the likes and comments. If you guys know of any other behaviors that I didn't mention in this video, leave them in the comment section down below, and I'll include them for the next video on this series. Thanks again for watching and your support. Appreciate you guys. Catch you later.